His name is Dr. Ilis Lariatis. He is one of the only physicians on the Greek island of Ikaria, the island where 1 in 3 people lives past 90. When journalist Dan Bretner flew there in 2009 to understand why, it was Lariatis who sat him down at a table outside. Olives, bread, a glass of wine, and explained what he'd been watching for decades. He didn't start with medicine, he started with tea. Every evening, he told Bettner, his patients drink a cup of wild herbs before bed. Not because a doctor prescribed it, because their mothers did it and their grandmothers before that. Wild marjoram, sage, mountain mint, rosemary, the same plants that grow on the hillsides above their houses. 2 or 3 cups a day, as naturally as breathing. Then Lariatis pointed to the numbers. 1 in 3 of his patients would live past 90. Half the cardiovascular disease of Western Europe, a quarter of the dementia, 1/9 the diabetes, and almost none of them use the daily pain medications that tens of millions of Americans take without thinking twice. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what those herbs are, where to find them at any supermarket or online, and how to prepare them the way Icarians actually do. Because the preparation is where most people get it wrong. You'll get a simple weekly plan you can start tonight, and I'll show you the one mistake people make in the first week that cancels the whole benefit before it has a chance to work. Get a pen. This one is worth writing down. Let's start with what to buy, because the herbs Lariatis described are not exotic. They're not expensive, and you don't need a Greek market to find them. The foundation herb is mountain tea. Its scientific name is Sideritis scardica. In stores and online, it's sold as mountain tea, Greek mountain tea, or ironwort. Search any of those 3 terms on Amazon, and you'll find it immediately. Dried, loose, ready to use. A bag costs between $6 and $10 and lasts several weeks. If you have a Greek, Mediterranean, or Middle Eastern market nearby, they almost certainly carry it. That's your first purchase this week. One practical note, buy it loose and dried, not in tea bags. The tea bag version exists, but the loose dried herb gives you better extraction during the simmering process. If you can only find tea bags, that works too. Use 2 bags instead of 1 pinch and still simmer rather than steep. The second herb is sage, dried wild sage, Salvia officinalis. This one you likely already have in your spice cabinet. If not, it's in the herb section of any supermarket. Under $3, the third is oregano, dried oregano. Same story. Most kitchens already have it. If not, any supermarket under $2. The same oregano you put on pizza is what you're brewing into tea. That's how simple this is. That's it. 3 herbs, all available at any grocery store or online. Total cost under $15 for a full month supply. You could order the mountain tea tonight and have it by the end of the week. Write these down. Mountain tea, sage, oregano. Now, how to prepare them? Because this is where almost everyone gets it wrong and where most of the benefit lives. In the West, we make herbal tea by dropping a tea bag into a cup of hot water and waiting 2 minutes. That method is fine for flavor, but it extracts only a fraction of what the plant contains. The Icarians don't do that. They simmer. Here's the exact preparation. Bring 1 cup of water to a full boil in a small pot. A regular saucepan works perfectly. Then turn the heat down to a low simmer. The water should barely be moving. Add a small pinch of the dried herb, about 2 grams, roughly the amount that fits loosely between your thumb and 2 fingers. Let it simmer on that low heat for 6 minutes. Then pour it through a small strainer into your cup. That's it. 6 minutes of gentle simmering. Not steeping. Why does this matter? Simmering extracts a different class of compounds, polyphenols, flavonoids, natural diuretics that steeping with hot water simply doesn't reach. Professor Yana Chino at the University of Athens, one of Europe's top experts on medicinal herbs, tested the specific herbs Icarians drink most often. She found strong antioxidant properties across all of them, and most also contained mild natural diuretics, the same compounds doctors prescribe in pharmaceutical form to lower blood pressure. The Icarians have been quietly managing their blood pressure every evening for generations without a prescription, without knowing the mechanism, without a copay. One last step, add a teaspoon of raw honey while the tea is still hot. Not the commercial honey in the plastic bear bottle. Raw, unfiltered honey, the kind labeled unpasteurized. You'll find it at health food stores, farmers markets, or online. It costs a little more than regular honey, but a jar lasts months. Commercial pasteurized honey has lost most of its active compounds in the heating process. Raw honey carries flavonoids and antimicrobial properties that work alongside the herbs. The Icarians treat it as an ingredient, not a sweetener. So the full preparation: bring to boil, reduce to simmer, add a pinch of herb, 6 minutes, strain into cup, teaspoon of raw honey while hot, drink it warm. That's the Icarian evening tea, exactly as Lariatus described it. Now the weekly plan. This is what Lariatus described when he told Buettner how his patients actually lived. Not one herb forever, but a rotation of whatever was growing nearby, whatever was in season. The practical version for any Western kitchen. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, mountain tea. The sideritis, your foundation herb, 1 pinch, simmered 6 minutes. Tuesday and Thursday, sage tea, 1 pinch of dried sage, same preparation. Boil, simmer, 6 minutes. Strain raw honey. Sage has a slightly stronger, more savory flavor than mountain tea. Some people prefer it. Either way, the preparation is identical. Saturday and Sunday, oregano tea, 1 level teaspoon of dried oregano per cup. Oregano is more potent than the other two, so a teaspoon rather than a pinch. Same 6-minute simmer. It has an earthy, almost savory taste that surprises most people the first time. After 2 or 3 evenings, it becomes familiar. Each herb works on slightly different pathways. Mountain tea reduces inflammation gradually over time. Sage adds rosmarinic acid, a compound documented for both anti-inflammatory and brain protective effects. Oregano brings carvacrol and thymol, which are among the strongest natural antioxidants found in any kitchen herb. Rotating through the week means you're covering a wider range of benefits. The same way the Icarians do naturally, because they gather whatever is available on the hillsides at any given time. When do you drink it? Evening after dinner, not first thing in the morning like a supplement. After dinner, the way Lariatus patients always did it, as a ritual that ends the day. The Icarians often drink it while visiting with neighbors or family. If you're alone, sit somewhere comfortable for 10 minutes away from your phone if you can manage it. That's the habit, not just the herb, but the 10 minutes of stillness around it. One practical tip that makes this much easier: keep all 3 herbs in a visible spot in your kitchen, right next to the stove, not in a cabinet, not in a drawer, on the counter where you'll see them every evening when you're cleaning up after dinner. The easier it is to see the habit, the easier it is to do the habit. Now the mistake. This is the one that ends the experiment before it starts. And it's so logical that almost everyone makes it. Most people, when they decide to try this, make one change at the same time. They stop their ibuprofen or daily pain reliever and start the tea on the same day. The logic seems sound. Replace one thing with another. It doesn't work that way. And here's why. Mountain tea is not a painkiller. It doesn't block pain signals the way ibuprofen does. Within 30 minutes, the knee feels better. What it does is gradually shift the inflammatory environment in the body over weeks and months, working upstream of where the pain lives. The timeline is completely different. In the first week of drinking the tea, you won't feel a dramatic difference. In the second week, probably the same. Most people at this point conclude it isn't working and go back to what they know. They never reach week 6, which is when the shift typically starts to become noticeable. The right approach is to layer, not switch. Keep your current pain management in place. Start the evening tea alongside it. Run 6 weeks of daily tea before you evaluate anything. Then, if you want to reassess, do it with your doctor. Look at whether you need the same dose, the same frequency. Let the preventive habit build before you remove the reactive one. This is exactly what Lariatus patients did without ever thinking about it. They spent their 40s and 50s drinking the evening tea before there was anything to treat. By the time the inflammation that builds in Western bodies had a chance to accumulate, the baseline was already different. The tea wasn't a treatment, it was maintenance started before there was anything to maintain against. That's a fundamentally different relationship with the body than most of us in the West have ever been taught. We wait for something to break. They never let it get there. Here's the full picture of what Lariatus observed over decades on that island. His patients didn't arrive sick the way patients in Athens did. They arrived old, physically active into their 80s, mentally sharp into their 90s, still tending gardens, still walking hills. Not because they'd found a cure, because they'd never built the internal environment where chronic disease takes hold and stays. One person captures this better than any statistic. Stamatis Moraitis was a Greek man living in Florida who was diagnosed with lung cancer in 1976. 9 doctors confirmed the diagnosis. They gave him 9 months to live. He couldn't afford a funeral in the United States, so he did what made sense to him. He went home to Ikaria to die among family and be buried near his ancestors. He didn't receive treatment. He didn't follow any protocol. He moved in with his elderly parents on the north side of the island. He woke when he felt like it, worked his small vineyard in the afternoons, took long naps. In the evenings, he walked down to the local tavern, played dominoes past midnight, and on the walk home, drank the same herb tea his mother had always made. 6 months passed, he didn't die. A year, 2, he built extra rooms onto the house. The vineyard expanded. He planted more. His health improved steadily, quietly without explanation, by the standards of the diagnosis he'd been given. Stamatis Moraitis died on February 3, 2013, 37 years after his terminal diagnosis. He was 98 years old. Was it the tea alone? No, it was the whole of Ikaria. The pace, the sleep, the community, the diet, the absence of the chronic low-grade stress that quietly compresses lives in the West. But the tea was there every single evening for 37 years. It was there for every one of his neighbors who made it past 90 without ever calling it medicine. It was part of the daily architecture of a life that didn't accumulate the disease load that Western medicine spends billions every year managing. So here's where you start. Tonight or tomorrow evening after dinner, make 1 cup of mountain tea. Bring 1 cup of water to a boil in a small saucepan. Turn it down to a low simmer. Add a small pinch of dried Sideritis scartica. Mountain tea, ironwort, whatever label it carries where you find it. 6 minutes on low heat. Pour through a strainer into your cup. Add a teaspoon of raw honey while it's still hot. Sit with it somewhere comfortable. 10 minutes. Not at your desk, not in front of the news, just the cup and the 10 minutes. That's the whole practice for week 1. In week 2, once you've made the mountain tea 3 or 4 evenings, and it's starting to feel like a normal part of the evening rather than something you're remembering to do, add the sage on Tuesday and Thursday. Same preparation, 6 minutes. In week 3, add the oregano on the weekend. By week 4, you have the full rotation running without thinking about it. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, mountain tea. Tuesday, Thursday, sage. Weekend, oregano, raw honey every time. Here's what the timeline honestly looks like. In the first 7 days, you probably won't feel a dramatic difference. That's normal and expected. This isn't ibuprofen. It doesn't produce results in 30 minutes. What's happening in week 1 is that you're building the habit structure. The cup is becoming part of the evening. That's the first win. At 30 days, most people notice 2 things. 1, they're sleeping a bit more easily. Several of the compounds in these herbs have mild calming properties that accumulate over time. 2, the evening feels different, more settled. The 10 minutes of sitting with the cup has become something they look forward to rather than something they remember to do. That shift in attitude toward the practice is actually a signal that the habit has embedded. At 90 days, the research on herbal anti-inflammatory compounds suggests the biological environment is genuinely shifting. Not dramatically, not overnight, but the baseline, the level of low-grade inflammation that sits underneath most of what we feel as stiffness, sluggishness, and general decline after 60 runs lower. Not because the tea performed a miracle, because 90 days of daily maintenance is 90 days of maintenance. The Ikarians who reached 90 doing this had 40 or 50 years of it. This is where that process starts. Your shopping list one more time. Mountain tea, dried sage, dried oregano, raw honey, 4 items. Mountain tea is the only one you probably need to order. The other 3 are in any supermarket. Order it tonight and you'll have it by the end of the week. Every week we go this deep on one zone, one practice, one system, and we always end with something you can do this week. Okinawa, Sardinia, Nicoya, Loma Linda. Every zone has its version of this kind of quiet daily practice, and we cover all of them. One question for the comments. Do you already drink any kind of herbal tea in the evening? And if so, what? Drop it below. I read everyone, and it often shapes the next video. Every evening, same herbs, same cup, same 10 minutes of sitting still. That's what living to 90 looks like from the inside. Dr. Lariatis didn't prescribe it. He just watched it happen in patient after patient, generation after generation, and eventually stopped being surprised. If this story changed the way you look at the simple herbs in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the ancient wisdom and history that modern life has tried to bury. Let's cultivate a healthier future together. The next treasure of longevity will be revealed soon.